Welcome to Women at Halftime podcast for men and women at mid-career or the halftime of life with issues that concern you. Maximize your skills, resources, and experience to live an even more fulfilling and significant second half of life. Right here with me, Deborah Johnson, on Women at Halftime podcast. Well, hello. It's great to be with all of you here. It's great to be the Women at Halftime podcast again. I have a wonderful guest today, and I had put down on my schedule to start talking about organization. And I thought, you know what? I need to bring somebody in on this. I am such an artist, and I'm always looking at better ways to organize. So I thought I'd like to learn from this lady, and we've spoken before. And so I have Laura Leist here today. So excited to have you, Laura. Thank you for coming on. This is so much fun. So
thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's wonderful. So a couple announcements just real quick, then we're going to get right to our subject. And don't forget about the Summit book. If you don't have that, it's great. It's a little allegory, very easy to read, very fun, very impactful as well, because the story is very applicable. And of course, our Women at Halftime book, which goes through the entire Hero Mountain. And Hero Mountain Summit, now still taking registrations for individual registrations for this. I only open it up twice a year, heromountainsummit.com. So, well, let's get right to our subject, because this is such a good subject for me, because I'm trying to be more organized so I waste less time. Okay, so I have a lot going. And I think, Laura, you are going to help me out in some areas today, especially because some of it, we just feel like we're kind of disorganized at times, or you know, how often do we look for those files on our computer and it's like we've spent 20 minutes, then an hour, then 2 hours. So give us a little bit of your background first, Laura. Why did you get into this field?
Yeah, so my background actually is in computer science and management information systems. I spent over a decade in the corporate world doing project management in the software industry. And then after traveling the world for about a decade, I decided to stop that and go into the field of organizing. And what's really interesting is that in my past career, people always said to me, "You're the most organized and detail-oriented person I've ever met." And I thought, well, how can I turn that into a career? And so I left my corporate job back in 2000 before there was any shows on TV or Real Simple magazine, and people literally did not know what the field of organizing or productivity was. So I was constantly having to explain what that meant. And back in those days, people really thought about organization as things, physical things, objects that you organize. But, what I was saying already in our industry was it's not just stuff, right?
Right.
There is going to be a movement where we are going to be talking about all of this digital organization that needs to happen as well, because this is what I had been doing for over a decade already, just with different data. So there you go. A little bit of my background.
Wow. And I am very challenged, especially at this point in my life, with multiple hard drives, with backing things up and then thinking, where did I back it up? I'm looking again and having to load these, I do a lot of video. So, I've got these huge hard drives and sound files as well, because I've been in music for so long. And so it's a challenge to find, and then when you're putting out, free downloads and content, and it's like, okay, I think I put that there. I want to find the original so I can edit. Those are the things that are so challenging right now. So I am really looking forward to hearing some of your tips. And I came up with a couple of these, we were talking about a couple of these questions here, and I want to expand on a couple of them, but why do we not see this digital organization as clutter? What is your answer to that one?
Because it's invisible.
Oh.
Literally, if you think about it, if you think about clutter in general, what people see as clutter, they think about the stuff that's around them, right? And that is what people always refer to as clutter. They don't think of what I refer to as the invisible forms of clutter, which is your data, anything electronic, the data could even be mental clutter as well. That is why it's very difficult, for people to realize that it's also an issue and a challenge for a lot of people.
Wow. And so it's like you trip over it, raising three sons, there was a lot of clutter. I tell you what, they leave their shoes out, you just trip over them, and it's, my husband wears size 14s. They are big. I call them
Right.
little feet.
Yeah.
But we don't think of that digital as clutter. But I tell you, when I spend some time organizing my desk and I just feel better inside. And
Yes.
so there's that sort of cleansing almost as what was the saying that we grew up with, cleanliness is next to godliness, and we're, our parents, but there's a big part of that that's actually true, because it just feels so cleansing to us. So
Yeah.
I am all up for like your tips and what are the type of organization systems that now you've put together, because you've been doing this naturally. And now putting a system together, that's not always a natural thing. That takes some time, and you've done that. So talk about some of the systems that you've done.
Yeah, well, I think that there's a lot of different systems that people need to have in place, whether it's for just their personal use or for home. So I'm just going to give you some high level bullet points, and then we might drill down into a few of those perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
But if we think about an email system, structure for email, a digital file system or structure for your photos, all those thousands of photos that we take.
Yes.
Are they backed up? Backup systems, for example, like where are all those backups stored? Like you said, are they hard drives? Are they in the cloud? Passwords, all that important information that you need to be able to put your hands on at a moment's notice. And it's not just passwords, so much more. And I think we're going to talk about that.
Yes.
There's a lot of other digital information as well that you can probably think of. If you think about, just your smartphone, there's apps on your phone. That can be digital clutter. Can you get your apps organized? I mean, how many apps do you have on your phone that you don't even use on a regular basis? There's so many different kinds of systems. Another system might be to have information stored in digital notebooks on your computer, a different way to access information. So there's a variety of different types of systems that I think people need to use. Then some other systems that are also helpful, both in terms of, more so at work, I would say, is task management systems. How do you get your work done? Project management systems, accounting systems, like how are you tracking, the money? So many systems, and they're all electronic. It's all digital. Many, many systems.
That in itself can be confusing. Like, how many systems do you have? And we're going to get into that. What do you use? I want to know some of your secrets.
Yeah, cloud storage, file systems. And here's the thing, Deborah, I want to mention is that so often what I hear my clients doing is that they gravitate towards a system or an app or a product that has big name recognition. But it's not necessarily the right tool to get the job done. But maybe that's what everyone is using, but it's not always what's going to be best for their life or their business. And sometimes they end up with multiple tools that do the same thing and they don't even know it.
You are so right, Laura. And that's one of the things, because of all of the, and there's a lot of podcasts out, and they've got their, people that are supporting them. And so they're advertising all these different products, and they're always saying, oh, this is the very best. This is the very best. And I've found that as well. You get onto the free free one, and then you get it so long, and then they're going to start charging you. I think, oh, do I like it? And to me, it's a time sucker. You need to find something that is simple, and I use Google Docs a lot as well. So, but it's simple and that you can access almost anywhere, and that's not going to. I call it being application poor. You can spend so much money on all these different applications, and are you really maximizing them? Is there something that can do most everything that's more reasonable, that's not that big name brand? And we'll get into some of your tips, because that's a challenge, I think, for many.
Yeah, and one big system I left out for, the business owner is a CRM, which is a very critical
Right.
system to have. And when you said, like, what is the best system to have? I see that posted so often on listservs and Facebook,
Right.
different associations, like, what's the best CRM? Well, there are many opinions about that, but there has to be a lot of due diligence to figure out what is the best for your business and what integrates with everything else that you're already doing. And I don't think that somebody can just give you an answer to that question on Facebook without knowing how you already run your business and what are all the other tools that you use. So I think that's a big mistake, that people often take that advice and then they end up with something that they don't need. Sometimes spending a lot of money on something that they don't need either.
Actually, I just thought of a great analogy with this. You wouldn't go to your local pharmacy and say, I need this and I need this and I need, without knowing how they work together. We would not do that. I mean, that's going to affect our health. But what people are doing right now is adding on these tools that's also affecting the health of their business, because they're time suckers, they're energy suckers, and then they're overlapping, and then you get back to it. You don't get to an app for a while and you have to relearn it again. I've
Right.
gone through all of this. This is why it's a pain point. I know for many others of, doing this, and you get these, going onto the main CRM. And some of them are just confusing. And I know that, you just have to choose the best for you and what's going to be easy to use and one that you will use all the time.
Right, right. One that you will maintain. I mean,
Yes.
that is a huge part of organization and systems, is the maintenance. Like in that book back there that you see behind me, the Eliminate Chaos, a 10-step process to organize your home and life.
Mm-hmm.
Step 10 literally is maintenance. And that's all about how you maintain what you put in place. And so I'm going to just give you an example. The other day, I do still on occasion go into clients' homes, and it's pretty rare, but I do. And they're moving into this brand new home, and I was in their master closet that's just been built out. My team's going to move them in and organize and unpack everything. And I was asking them about their preferences for how they want their clothes folded. And they kind of looked at me like, why are you asking me this question? And I said, well, do you want it folded the Marie Kondo style, or do you want it folded flat? Because there's a difference. And they said, well, why is this important? And I said, it's important because if you are not going to maintain a certain way that we're going to fold it, we are not going to spend our time setting it up that way and figuring out how it fits in that space. So maintenance, if you don't know ultimately how you're going to maintain something, don't want to put the work into it up front. So you have to kind of think about, the end goal and how you want to be able to maintain something. And it works that way for electronic systems too. Maintenance is an ongoing process that just because you put it in place doesn't mean you're done. Your work has just started, right? You're going to maintain whatever that system and structure is.
I am getting so inspired right now because I feel like I have so much maintenance to do, and it just feels so good when you throw away, file. I just have so much on my hard drives of these old video files. When will I use these again? That are promoting different podcast episodes and all of these. I'm not going to reuse those. I can just throw those video files away. Why am I storing them? And going through both sides of parents and their homes after they passed on, I see so much stuff. And I think we just keep stuff on those hard drives too. And as you said, they're clutter. And the maintenance, it takes time. You have to schedule this in. And it's something that it's just not a normal part of our schedule, is it?
No, it never is. And that's the thing that I think people don't realize is that you have to make time for maintenance. One of the things that I've heard consistently in the 23 years that I have been doing this work is that they'll say, someday I'll get organized. Someday I'll do this. I'm like, there is no someday on any calendar I have ever seen. You have to make the time. And so in our process, our methodology that we use, step one is to make time. Because if you don't make time for whatever that activity is, it's not going to get done. I mean, we all choose how we want to spend our time. We choose how we spend our money. We choose how we spend our time. We choose to spend our time on things that are important to us. So if it's not important, we're probably not choosing to spend our time on it. But ultimately, it will have implications later on if we don't make time for it.
Right. And would you say that's then the most overlooked thing that people do with their organization style is that maintenance? I mean, we've talked about it now.
I think that is an often overlooked step in the process. I'll give you a quick little example. When I wrote one of those books, I asked for real life clients that I could, organize. And in particular, when I did the home office chapter, I went to people where well, let me just make it short. I chose somebody for the home office chapter that I had organized in the past, specifically because everything I put in place, she did not maintain.
Wow.
And while we organized the office and made it beautiful and put filing systems in place and the organization of the stuff in place and other things in place, it wasn't maintained. And I chose her because I wanted to emphasize the importance of maintenance and what happens when it's not maintained. And we documented how much time it took us to reorganize this office simply because things were not maintained. For example, when we went in, piles and piles of papers that just needed to be shredded. So I asked the question, what is causing you not to shred those papers? Simple answer. My shredder broke. Get a new one. Sometimes it's a very simple thing, but something happens and it's cause and effect. So while we all might think, well, that's such an easy fix, she chose not to fix it. And as a result, all these papers piled up, things got in a state of disarray. And I forget now, I mean, it's been 17 years since I wrote that book, but it was a major effort to redo that office. And so I think that, you get to step 10, you get to maintenance in whatever that system is that you just organized and put into place, whether it's the physical objects that you've organized or the data that you've organized, like those files. You have to go back to your files and clean them out. If you have a folder of email for a project and you're done with that project, you just let it sit on the computer because space is free and out of sight, out of mind, or do you clean it out when you're done with it? You have to decide What am I going to do with it? Do you go back to Dropbox or your cloud storage or your file servers and look at, the files of what you don't need anymore? Because stuff piles up and you have to make time for all that.
Well, you are definitely inspiring me, and because I just want my life to be smoother and not have to look for things, and the less stuff you have to look through, better. If you don't have and you don't have a need for this, that you've done this years ago, and some of that stuff is very good. You do need to save, but you need to be able to find it.
Correct.
So, and digital files, it's challenging to know that system. And having done so many recorded projects in my office, I have what we put everything on CD files, not only sound files, but digital files. So they are all organized. I've got them numbered and everything. But I didn't start really doing that on those digital files. And so, I'm struggling right now to say, okay, really need to put a better system into place. So I know everything's backed up. I've lost some things when a hard drive goes down, and you just don't want that to happen. You want to be able to have that backup to be able to find those files that you need that are important to you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. That's such a great story, Laura. Thanks for sharing that, because I'm feeling a little guilty of the way my office looks right now. So that's not all behind me. Again, I'm an artist, and I go from one thing to the next. It's just the way my mind works. But we have to be disciplined also. That's just not a normal thing. It's so cute. I have to tell this story. One of my sisters especially always would be able to, her counters are so clean. I would come over, everything's cleared away. And she would come up when I was first having my first baby. She came over, oh, I'll help you clean. And my house looked so good. But I noticed after she left where everything was. Stuffed inside drawer, just everything gets dumped. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is taking me a lot more time to go through. So it's just kind of funny. Now she's gotten a lot better. She is really on this Marie Kondo and that organization. She's done a lot different now with her organizations. But again, I always wonder, okay, your house looks really nice. Where's all the stuff? Where did you put it?
Is it hidden?
But she's come up with that. And I think books like this and systems like yours have really helped people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's no one size fits all. There's no one system. I myself, I don't fold my stuff the Marie Kondo way. I can't stand it personally, but a lot of it's just not how I fold things. I hang almost everything, but a lot of our clients like things folded that way. But my ask of my team is that you check with a client and you think about while it looks beautiful, if you're not going to maintain it that way, then there's no point in spending the time up front to do it. You have to think about the maintenance and what goes into it. And I think that's why some people get really frustrated with different systems that are out there, because they don't think through, the whole way, or they don't get everything into one system and get it working and make it form as a habit long enough that they get used to it before they give up. So you've got to sometimes give things a try. So
yeah, take some chances and see what's going to really work. That takes a little extra time, but it'll end up, what I know about that is it'll end up saving you time later. So you're not spinning your wheels. So
most definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about a digital notebook and what that means, first of all, and some examples of how you use a digital notebook, because that term may not be familiar with anybody listening.
Yeah. So digital notebooks, if you think back to probably when you and I were in elementary and high school, we had 3-ring notebooks, right?
Right.
And in those notebooks, you could put dividers in, and then between the dividers, you had pages, right? Mm-hmm. Well, now there's digital notebooks, and you can do the same thing. You can have a notebook for a subject or multiple subjects. And in that digital notebook, you can have sections And then you can have pages, and you can have subpages and more subpages. And so there are different digital notebooks that are on the market. There are, probably the one that has the most name recognition. This is where I go back to that whole like branding and name recognition is Evernote.
Yes.
But for a lot of my clients, Evernote does not fit the bill for them, what their needs are. There's also OneNote. So for people that are Microsoft Office users, a lot of times OneNote already comes with the software that they have. That's actually what I use, although I used to be an Evernote user, but I switched to OneNote. And then Google also has their own version of a digital notebook as well that you can use. So there's like 3 main digital notebooks that are on the market. And I think you have to decide what works for you, what platform are you on? And so a digital notebook, I can give you some examples of how I use them. So, Deborah, we met through NSA, right?
Right.
So I have a digital notebook that I use for all of the conferences I go to. And it's literally labeled conferences. And so in my conference notebook, I have sections for all of the different associations that I belong to. So there's NSA, there's NAPO, there's ICD, there's some other smaller conferences I go to. And then on the right-hand side, I have the pages. And so what I've done, like with NSA, because I've been to so many conferences, conventions over the years, I will list a date of the conference, and I even put like where it was for that year. And then I'll have a page for every single session that I attended with my notes. And then I store all the handouts, the notes that I took, so on and so forth. So I can go back and reference that. And the beautiful thing about that is that every year I just keep adding on to that notebook, and I can access all of that information literally from my iPad, from my desktop computer, from my smartphone. I can email that information to someone else if they needed the notes. And I can just build on that over and over and over. But here's another thing. I have so many notebooks that I use. Like with our team, I have 2 teams. I have a team of productivity specialists, and I have a team of residential organizing specialists. So we have 2 notebooks for each team. Each team has a notebook for kind of like resources and references, where we keep all sorts of information that they need to have at their fingertips with their clients that they can literally look up on their phone. And then if they need to, they can literally hit a page and email it to the client. All reference information, things that are tagged, they can instantly pull up this information. It's so helpful to be able to like locate all this data on their phone. And then also notebooks to track like client projects and client information as well. And then there's other notebooks that I've created for things like, personal things for me, recipes. I have a whole recipe notebooks. Like when I'm out shopping, I have all my recipes at my fingertips. Like when we are, I have a whole house notebook for like when we've moved, or, now we're building a vacation home. I store all of that information in a notebook. But you can literally have notebooks for every like different categories. I have an entire notebook that's just based on all my speaking work and the different parts of speaking. I have an entire notebook based on all the coaching work that I do. So I have these individual notebooks that are in very broad categories. I have about 10 that I access on a regular basis, and they all have these subsections with subpages. So without getting into kind of too much detail, they all sync out into the cloud. I can share them with anyone I want on my team, or anyone else for that matter. I can tag or identify certain pieces of information in there. So if I wanted to look up let's say that I'm giving a talk and I wanted to find a bunch of statistics or quotes, I could literally do a search on a specific tag, and and instantly find all of that information that I need for my talk.
Wow.
Very powerful tool. And it's all
Wow.
kept in one place. That is such a huge time saver to have all of that information just stored in one place. And the search tool is really powerful. And that's using OneNote, not using Evernote, or
Right.
I think it's called Google Keep is the other one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what a great introduction, though, and how to use that and how to keep that in one place. Because as we talked about passwords, I've really gotten into that. I mean, that was something I put into place 2 to 3 years ago of just an organizer. It has saved me so many things because I can access it from anywhere. And it's available for all of my devices, and it's wonderful. I'm not always downloading a document with new, what's the most recent password. It's so easy, and I can, give people access to that, my web team, and so they're behind the scenes, and I can give them access. So it's what a wonderful idea with all of these digital notebooks and that organization. The challenge begins with, the notebooks that we already have in print. So what do we do with those? Do we need to scan them? Well, a lot of times you just need to throw them away if they're old, but
Sometimes.
it's just clutter. So
Yeah. I mean, we should talk about passwords.
yeah, okay. So let's talk about passwords. I'm joking here.
So, I think that password and password management is often one of the most overlooked digital systems and tools out there. And, it's one of those things where people are constantly resetting their passwords because they don't have them at their fingertips. And it's very time consuming. And then if you think about the fact that when there's a crisis and you need to be able to put your hands on this digital information, you need to know where it is in times of stress. And I'll give you an example. About 4 years ago, my husband went in for what we thought was going to be a stent to put in his heart. And about 4 hours later, I was taking him to the hospital to have bypass surgery.
Wow.
And that thought never crossed my mind. But we use LastPass in our office, which is a digital password management system. My husband is actually an IT specialist. He works full time for a company and works with our clients on a lot of these systems as well. And we use this tool every day with our own team. And we also set our clients up with this quite a lot. And when he went into the hospital, I mean, first of all, that was already such a stressful event for me. And then, you're wondering, like, does he come out of surgery? What happens? How do I access like all of his passwords, all of his information that I need? And I just thought, well, I don't have to be concerned about not having access to the passwords or knowing how to get into things because they are all on LastPass, right? But the great thing about LastPass is that there is what's called an emergency access feature that you can give to someone. You can give it to a family member, a friend. So let's say that something happened to Rob. And, so we have what's called a family plan. Our whole team is on it. Let's say that something happened to Rob and I needed access to his vault. That's where all of your passwords and secure notes and credit cards and passport, driver's license, I mean, you name it, it's all stored in there. If I needed access to that, I can request access. And if he doesn't end up denying me access because it's sent as an email within like however many days he set it for, which is like 3, or you can set it for however long you want, then I automatically get access to everything in his vault. So in a situation in a family where something happens to someone, it's so stressful to try and have to figure out like how do you get access to that person's bank account and credit cards
Right.
to take care of all the financial matters? I mean, people already have enough stress on their plate, but this makes it so much easier to have this all organized and in one place. And literally there's an app for that. It's on your phone, right? And it's more than just passwords. I mean, there's so much more data that goes into this. And the beautiful thing about it is that these passwords, you can share them. So like as a business owner, I can share them with my team,
Right.
and my team never sees the password. Because I mean, I can allow them to see the password, but I can also say, no, don't show them the password. So in a family environment, you can do the same thing. You can give your kids access, or your spouse or whoever, access to the information, but they can't see the password. There's so much that you can do with that. I mean, I literally have left my credit card, out when I was out, like having lunch one day, went to the mall to go shopping and realized I don't have my credit card. So I pulled up LastPass. I had the phone number of the credit card stored, all the information on the credit card. And I just sat down at the mall, called them, said, I've left my card somewhere. I can't find it. Can you please put a freeze on my card until I can find it, or issue, or I'll just get a new one issued. But it was that easy because I had it all stored here. And I even remember one day when my client, we have her all set up on LastPass, and she traveled out of town and got her wallet stolen. And I mean, while that is a terrible thing to have happen, she was literally able to go into LastPass, call all her credit card companies in the bank, and put a freeze on everything, get new credit cards issued, because everything was stored in LastPass. A lot easier than having to wait until you get home and try and figure it out. So there's so many benefits to having this password management system, but people never really think about it, not to mention the sheer amount of time that you save every day of just being able to literally log into a website with, a click or two in a second.
Yes. It's saved me so much time. It really has.
Yeah.
And with multiple websites, you have multiple, passwords. I've been hacked enough that I'm careful with that way. Yeah. That's, great advice, great practical advice. So now you've been called the Queen of Outlook. We're gonna kind of start tying things up.
Yeah.
What are 3 tips that people could use every single day to save time, but most of your clients don't know that they exist? One might be that password.
Well, there's no passwords in Outlook per se, but 3 things. I won't explain really how they work, but 3 things are to use the email template feature, to send emails that you can store and then resend over and over again. A lot of people use the signature field or the draft email. There's a better way. To use a quick step to automatically send emails or folder information. And then to use a quick part where that can be used to automatically insert chunks of information into an email so that you don't have to write the same information over and over. And a lot of people just don't know that those exist or how to use them, but that saves a tremendous amount of time.
That's great. And if you're on Gmail or something like that, where would that tool be found?
I have no idea because I am an Outlook expert and not a Gmail expert.
Yeah. I'm such a Mac user, and I've gone to the Gmail because the Outlook, for some reason, it just didn't cross over for me, right? So,
Yeah.
but that's a great. I mean, you can always do a cut paste from your notes, and you can do something just real quick that's already done. And I've done that quite a bit with links that I want to share. And there's very easy, then you just cut paste, that sort of thing. It depends on what, but you can do those templates definitely on Gmail too. You can have those templates stored. That's a great tool.
Yeah, I've heard that you can, but yeah, I just, like I stick to like what I'm best at, and I've been teaching Outlook. I mean, that's part of what I teach and train on for almost 3 decades. So that's what I focus on.
That's your go-to. That's great, though. But a
Yep,
lot of the things you can do this in multiple areas as well.
exactly.
I do
Yeah.
know that. So great words of advice. That's wonderful. So where do people just start? So if someone's listening to this and they're thinking, okay, I'm overwhelmed already, what, how do people like just? What's the first step that they would take?
Yeah, the first step. It's a good question. I think the first step is to really think about everything that you want to get organized. Like, what are all the different systems that you want to put in place? Okay, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? We always say
Right.
that. So, you're not going to do all of this in a day or a week or a month or even this year.
Right.
And then once you kind of list out what all those systems are, pick one and work at that and put that in place. Like maybe pick the password system if you don't already have one, because I think that that's really important for everyone. And then start locating all those passwords and just start doing something. And keep in mind that done is better than perfect. Like
Oh, I love
you
that.
can start today doing something. Um, Even if you're not sure, even if you go to my YouTube channel, there is an hour and 15-minute um, webinar that my husband Rob and I did on getting started with LastPass. You could watch that, get a beverage, watch it. But it'll give you a really good overview of like all the different information that you could put in that system as a way to get started. And then that might give you some ideas of the data around your home or an office to start gathering. So for every system that you're going to put in place, you're going to probably need to repeat that process. But I would say, sit down and think about like, maybe even where's your pain point? What's bothering you the
Yes.
most? You could start there, or just list out like what's missing in my life, what's missing in my business,
Right.
what are the systems that I need, and then choose one. And that's probably where you need to start. And you know what? And if you don't know how to do it, find someone that can help you, because you know what? We're not all experts at everything. And sometimes hiring someone that knows how to shorten your learning curve and make sure it's set up the right way the first time, it's going to really help.
Great advice. And I loved a couple things, real standout things that you said. Of course, that done is better than, perfect. I say that a lot, people, especially when they're dealing with technology.
Yeah,
But you've got to start
you
and
do.
find what's pressing most, the pain point. And I think for you mentioning like the passwords was really important, because a pain point of that would be if some emergency happened, or you're traveling, or doing something like that. And so that's very, very important to be able to share that.
Mhm.
And but just start somewhere and just start that list and do a little bit at a time, so it's not overwhelming. So great advice. And especially with the passwords, with the digital notebook, I think those are some real standouts for me. And because in a digital notebook I can also put where things are stored, and
Yes.
that, so you can find things, going, okay, where, because it's a search tool as well.
Mhm.
So you can find a certain file. It's like, okay, what did I label that even? And I've been doing a lot better in how I label things and where they are. I went through the whole Marie Kondo thing too, and I don't roll everything, believe me, but it helps to think about that, and how you don't want to just keep gathering stuff that you haven't even in your closet worn for years. But same thing happens digitally. Why are
Right.
you keeping all this stuff?
Exactly.
So great words of advice. Well, let's give us one sort of tip in leaving. I think that was a big one that you just said, but I want people to know how they can contact you or access. I mean, you've got this YouTube channel, you've got so much free material as well, and you've got an amazing book. So how can people get in touch with you, Laura?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a website, eliminatechaos.com is one way to reach out to me. You can contact me via the website, social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, any of those be great.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I loved the fact that I put out a lot of free material too, but your YouTube that you're going through the LastPass, that I think if someone's going, oh, I need something to help organize, even if it's just 5 passwords, if you've got your bank passwords, your credit cards, and I tell you, it is so worth it. To have that. It's really saved me in putting that system I didn't even realize how much, and it's a wonderful program because I use LastPass as well. So in fact, you've enlightened me to a couple other features as we spoke today. So I'm probably gonna watch that same YouTube video and make sure I've access and everything I need to.
Good.
So,
Yeah.
well, Laura, thank you so much. Any last word? And then we will end up signing off here. So.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I just think you gotta, pick a place and get started and, know that it can be really overwhelming to get started. But I think once you do something, you'll start to, feel that overwhelm melt away.
Yes, I think so too. And especially as you get more organized, you will feel that overwhelm start to drift away. And that's a great, really important part of all of this. So,
That's exactly right.
Thank you so much
Thank you.
for being with us today on the Women at Halftime podcast. I love being able to feature guests. We have one guest per month, which is so much fun, and that's I just really enjoy this. So,
Well, thank you.
Thanks
for having me.
Thanks for being with us. You can always access me anytime and find our full podcast at womenathalftime.com. You can get that anytime. And of course, I have a number of websites of Deborah Johnson Speaker, of goalsforyourlife.com, and DJ Works Music too. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. And I'll look forward to being with you then next week with a brand new episode. Thanks. Bye-bye for now. Thank you for joining us. It is because of our wonderful listeners like you that we keep going strong week after week. Share and follow us for new shows to inspire you and encourage you in your life's journey. You can find all of our articles and links at womenathalftime.com.